When I was 16, I got my learner's driver's license, which meant that because I passed a short, mostly common sense multiple choice test, I was allowed to take a 2-ton death machine on the road, even though I still wasn't old enough to get my ears pierced, buy paint, or become a notary public. I mean, come on. And even though the law said I was ready to hit the road with no idea how a car worked, my mom didn't, so we went to a parking lot for 3 to 4 hours a day, 3 days straight so I could practice. At that time, I didn't understand the concept of pushing the pedal gently, so anytime I wanted to move, we were jolted forward. But that would scare me, so I immediately slammed on the brakes every time. But eventually, when I was no longer considered an endangerment to the lampposts in the parking lot, my mom was like, well, time for the highway. And I was immediately faced with people merging and changing lanes, and my mom screaming, go faster, Sophie, faster! But I'm going the speed limit. Well, then get in the slow lane. And that's something I still don't understand. What do you mean the speed limit is 70 for everyone on this road, but there's a fast lane and a slow lane? They're both supposed to be going the same speed. So if I'm not speeding in the fast lane, am I going to get pulled over for going too slow even though I'm going the speed limit? Well, I wouldn't know. I stay in the slow lane because that's the only one that makes sense. And whenever my mom was teaching me something like how to stay in the lines or back into a parking spot, and I didn't get it, she would tell me to just feel it. What do you mean, just feel it? I don't feel it. I don't know how to feel it. But after a while of navigating my mom's unconventional teaching methods, she got me a driving instructor, who was very particular to say the least. During my first lesson, the only thing we did was right turns, because he had a really specific way he wanted me to grab the wheel, and when I didn't do it right, he would grab the steering wheel from me, which meant our entire lesson he was just taking control of the car. And I don't know if you've ever been steering a car and had it go in a completely different direction out of nowhere, but that was definitely startling to me. When I got home, I told my mom about it, and she also thought that was pretty odd, so she called the driving school to request a different instructor. And they said they didn't have any instructors with openings for about 4 months. But we didn't want to go with the other guy, so we just agreed to it. And about 4 months later, I had a new instructor, and his name was Stanley. Stanley was pretty old and was a pretty good instructor all around, but, you know, he just seemed kind of bothered with the state of the world. He would go on long rants about how anyone could honk at a learner and how people with full licenses could make any sort of silly mistakes. And when he saw someone cut someone else off or try to go when it wasn't their turn, he would look at them through the window with this exaggerated, shocked expression, so I would just have to sit next to him attempting not to laugh. But I was not immune to Stanley's frustration, and it showed when he took me for my first practice test. We took a similar route to the one I would be taking in the real test in a pretty popular area next to the mall, meaning there were a lot more cars than I was used to on the neighborhood roads we usually went on. And taking the turn out of the parking lot of the driving test building, there were a lot of cars coming and I immediately had to get 2 lanes over. But I was really struggling with this and Stanley took me through the turn like 10 times, but no matter how many times we did it, I still didn't get it. And Stanley was really disappointed in me, but at a certain point we had to continue with the test anyway. And not being able to efficiently turn onto the road and then change lanes meant that I was lacking some fundamental driving skills, which made it an automatic fail, which is one of the ways you can fail a driver's test. The other way is through points, where there are a bunch of categories for points like rolling stops and stuff like that, and you could get 2 points in every single category and still pass, but if you get 3 points in any one category, you fail. It's really hard to fail on points though, so even with how terribly I failed the practice test, I still would have passed on points. So when I went for my real driving test, the only thing I was really worried about was getting an automatic fail. And my driving test actually went really well, for about 5 minutes, until we reached an intersection where I had to turn left. So I entered the intersection and waited for it to be clear enough to go, but I didn't get an opportunity while the light was green, meaning I needed to go when it was yellow. But I hesitated and the light turned red when I was in the middle of the intersection. So the examiner had to take control of the car and reverse it. And even though both of us knew for certain that I had failed, I still had to finish the remaining 40 minutes of the test. So I did, and she explained to me why I failed. But I was so embarrassed because I didn't want to have to go and tell everyone that I'd failed. But luckily for me, I managed to pass the test just 2 weeks later, and that story is way crazier, so let me know if you want to hear about the time that I ended up passing the test. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know any weird things that you experienced while you were learning to drive, and I will see you in the near future on this corner of the internet, but for now, I gotta sign out.